Zoom, I was able to do a tour around my instrument collection. I managed to get around there, 3/4. And I was going to bring quite a lot, but I ended up in hospital last weekend under instructions not to play shawms and crumhorns. So, sadly, I have got one crumhorn and I might play it. And I'm not allowed to bring shawms, but I have got recorders. And I'm also very much under the gratitude to the con, because I was going to do a bit of live looping, but I'm also not supposed to lift things, and my speaker was just like a little bit too heavy. So, at no notice, your con-con's got me a Street Cue, which is a speaker I have not used before, but is one of the kind of bustless speakers, which I'll hopefully I'll do a bit of live looping on later. So there might be a little bit of practice with it, but the art of live looping is, you're playing in here. Has anyone heard of live looping? Who hasn't heard of live looping? Yeah. Has anyone heard of Ed Sheeran? Yes. Ed Sheeran has toured the world, done arenas on his own by the auspices of live looping. And when he started with a pedal which was actually, it's not plugged in, I'm sure. Here is a live looping pedal, because you're techie people, I'm sure you like something that's got buttons on it. All it does is, when you press this one, it starts recording whatever you are doing. You press it again, it now, well, it's got power on it. You press it again, and it now plays back what you just recorded, and you can now record over it. And there's got little features. So it means that what people like Ed Sheeran do is they record these little loops, and they do all these clever little things. A Shape of You is a live looping piece, where he's got lots of fun, but he's got a much fancier thing now. But I use it to do multi-part medieval and Renaissance music, which is not what Ed Sheeran does at all, but I'm sure he'd approve. So, and I thought I'd do it, but it's because it's difficult to do a multi-part Renaissance piece on your own. I mean, I do it, but it's serial, so you don't get the harmony. So I will plug this back in again. And we will, hopefully. But the problem is, you have to place the speaker so you can hear it, but not so the microphone feeds back. And I haven't really fiddled that, so expect some fiddling about that later. So that's something to look forward to. Another thing to look forward to, and I was told categorically that you would look forward to it. I've been told, it's true. That tune I started with is called Petty Meow. Yes. There are people in this room who know the dance. And would like to dance it later. And apparently, so do the rest of you. There's also another tune called Horses Brawl, which is one of the funniest things you can perhaps do. So if once I've done a few things, we can have a go at dancing, or if I find I haven't got enough breath to play music, that might be dancing earlier. So that's something to look forward to. Dancing, you had bagpipes, Shanice and tech. It's like a dream. But I thought the thing I'd start with, after the bagpipes, because bagpipes are just special, is a story. And the story, this is actually quite a long story, and I thought, oh, I look for this. Because it's a story, it's one of my favourite stories, but the problem with it, it's quite long. It's too long to put in a short programme, it's too short to put in a long programme. So I thought I wanted to tell it to you because it's effectively an early science fiction story. Because when people think about science fiction, they think it starts with the likes of Verne and Wells. And people who know that's not true think about Mary Shelley and even kind of Somnium later. But aspects of science fiction are actually quite old. Lucian, who was a 2nd century Roman, wrote this story about people going to the moon. It was a satire on people's outrageous holiday stories. And there's the Japanese story, The Moon Princess, where she comes back in a flying saucer. In the Alexander Romance, the medieval Alexander Romance, Alexander the Great has a diving bell lowered to the bottom of the ocean floor so he can explore. All these things are not done by magic, they are all done by things created by people who aren't gods. Because if you want to talk about the fantastical, the very first story ever existed, Gilgamesh, is about the fantastical. But it's about works of God. These are the works of men. And the story I want to tell you, lovely long intro, the story is slightly longer than the intro, but only so, is actually from a collection of stories you would have probably thought were least likely to contain science fiction elements. It's The 1001 Nights. Because The 1001 Nights is this massive collection of stories that has no absolute number of stories. And in it there are genies and there are flying carpets and there are magic doors, but also there are automata, and there's loads of works of man. And this particular story features, it has a large aspect of the scientific and the geometrical. So, there once was a Persian king called Sabur. And he was a popular king. He gave alms to the poor. He didn't abuse his position. He also, in courts of law, would let the poor and vulnerable win against the rich and powerful even when they were his friends. Who would have thought such a thing could happen? And he was popular, but this wasn't the reason he was popular. In fact, this wasn't even the main reason he was popular. The main reason he was popular was twice a year he would give a festival. Now, this festival, there would be music, there would be dancing, there would be food, but most importantly, there would be marvels. Because King Sabur was known to be a lover of science and geometry, and anyone who could bring the greatest marvel of science and geometry would be given the greatest prize. And people would come from around the world. And this particular festival came 3 sages. And they were thought to be the wisest sages they were. One was from India, one was from Greece, and one was from Persia. And so they all stood before King Sabur and his court. And the Indian sage stood forward, and he handed King Sabur a golden trumpet. And on this trumpet was embossed such swirls and patterns, and the deeper you looked, the deeper the pattern seemed to go, as if its engravings and embossings went down into infinity. It was truly a beautiful work of art. Ah! Said the Indian sage, this is not just a beautiful work of art, this is a marvel of science and geometry. For if you give this to anyone, they blow it, and the person in the path of the trumpet will die from a heart attack. You give it to the men on your walls, you will never be invaded. Well, said King Sabur, that is truly a marvel of science and geometry, and if it does what you say it does, you may ask of me anything that is in my power to give you in return for it. And next came the Greek sage, and he had a golden dish, and the golden dish with 12 golden pea chips in the middle with a golden peacock, and they were so finely wrought that you could have sworn he had taken birds and gilded them. It was truly a beautiful work of art. Ah, but this is not just a beautiful work of art, said the Greek sage. This is a marvel of science and geometry. For on the hour, every hour, the peacock crows, pecks at one of the pea chips. They flutter their wings, and so you know what time it is. Well, said the king, that is truly a marvel of science and geometry, and if it does what you say it does, you may ask of me in return anything that is in my power to give you. And then the Persian sage stood forward, and he had brought with him an ebony horse. A horse so finely carved that you could have sworn a horse had stepped forward and stopped. It wasn't for a back, it was encrusted with jewels. And the bridle and the saddle and the trappings were so finely made, no one would doubt they weren't fit for a king. It was truly a beautiful work of art, but it's not just a beautiful work of art, said the Persian sage. This horse can fly. Well, said the king, if it can do what you say it does, then you may ask of me anything that is in my power to give you in return for it. And so, the 3 items, the trumpet was blown and condemned prisoners died. The tray was watched, and on the hour, every hour, the peacock lifted its beak, pecked at one of the pea chicks, they fluttered their wings, and everyone knew what time it was. And the ebony horse, the Persian sage, got on it, and he flew around into the air. He swooped, he ducked, and he dived. He landed exactly where he'd left from. And everyone agreed these were marvels of science and geometry. And so the 3 sages again stood before king's birth. And what they wanted in return for their marvels was surprisingly similar. Each of them wanted to marry one of the beautiful daughters of King Sabah. Now, they were reputed to be beautiful, but it's not as if anyone had seen them. You don't see daughters of kings, apart unless you're a close relative or an attendant. Nobody sees the king's daughters, and nobody was going to tell the king he didn't have beautiful daughters. But the sages weren't worried. They were mainly wanting to be son-in-laws of a great and powerful king. And this was all well and good, because what else are daughters for, apart from to give to people of their father's will? And it would have been fine, except that the three daughters happened to be watching the proceedings from behind a screen. And the three sages might have been wise, and they might have been rich, but they were also old, and they were very, very ugly, each one uglier than the other. And the youngest of the three daughters, and the most beautiful, because despite all probability they were beautiful, was going to be married to the Persian sage, the oldest and ugliest of them all. And although she'd always known she'd been given away in marriage, she hadn't expected it to be for a wooden horse to a very old, ugly old man. And she ran from the screen, screaming that she would not be given away, of course. If she was going to be given away to this man, she would kill herself first. She ran straight into the arms of her brother, the son of the king, the prince Kamar al-Akmar. And she wept to tell her tale. And Kamar al-Akmar had been out of town. He didn't know anything about horses, trumpets, or chicks. And he was horrified that his father was going to give away his most beautiful daughter in return for a horse. A wooden horse. And Kamar al-Akmar comforted his sister, said, I will stop this. I mean, you're going to have a rich and powerful husband, someone you might like. But you weren't going to give him away for a horse. So he went down into the courtyard where the king was talking to the Persian sage next to the ebony horse. He said, Father, how dare you give away your daughter for a horse? But mind you, that is a really nice horse. No, it's not right. God, it's beautiful. And the saddle and the bridle, no one would doubt they were fit for it. No. What, Father, have you gone mad? And the king said, my son, it's not a really beautiful horse. It flies. Flies? Have you been at the gym again? No. It is a marvel of science and geometry. A marvel of science and geometry is a marvel of some kind of scam, if you ask me. It flies. And the king said, make it show my son how to fly the horse. And the Persians say, but it's a great amount of skill in flying this. Kamar al-Akmar said, I'll have you know I'm the finest horseman in the whole of Persia, and there's not a single horse that I haven't mastered. Show me how your marvel of science and geometry flies. And he got on the horse. Well, the Persian sage didn't want to show him how to fly it, but he was about to lose his bride. So he showed Kamar al-Akmar the button that made the ebony horse fly into the sky, but only the button that made the ebony horse go up. So Kamar al-Akmar pressed the button that made the ebony horse fly, and it flew up into the air. No one was more surprised than Kamar al-Akmar. And indeed, he was flying an ebony horse. He was flying across the desert. But he hadn't been lying. He was the greatest horseman in the whole of Persia. And there hadn't been a horse he hadn't mastered. And he was going to be damned if he'd let this wooden one. So he started moving the reins. And he was able, after a while and several close calls, make the horse swoop and dive and sweep just how he wanted it. He could make that horse do anything he wanted, except go down. So he was hovering about 100 feet above the desert floor. And he thought to himself, you know, if this is truly a marvel of science and geometry, and not the work of magic, and there's a button that makes it go up, surely amongst all these gems and these jewels, there must be a button that makes it go down. So he started pressing jewels and gems to find what would make the horse go down. And he several times nearly fell off, but eventually he could make that horse do anything he wanted. He was flying over the desert floor in complete control of this ebony horse. And he landed on the desert floor, and it suddenly occurred to him how late it had got. It was nearly dusk. He was a long, long way from his city, and he had no idea where it was. And he was hungry, and he was thirsty, and there was lots of other bodily functions that needed attention as well. But he saw on the horizon another city, and he thought, well, by the laws of hospitality, if I go there, they should look after me for tonight, and when day dawns, I will head home. And so that's what he did. But the city was actually a very long way away, and by the time he arrived, it was dark, full dark. So he landed on the roof of the palace. He's the son of the king, where else he going to go? And he got off the horse and started wandering through the corridors of the palace. But it was now very late, and the corridors were completely abandoned. And all he could see was one light, so he headed for it. And he found it was a light burning outside the harem, and the guard was asleep, with his water skin above him. And Kamar al-Akmar, very thirsty, took the water skin, took a drink, and then started wondering what might be in the harem. He was used to his father's harem. What could be the harm of seeing what was in this one? So he stepped out the garden, went to the door, and he saw on the carriage, in the moonlight, the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, and his sisters walking there. She was surrounded by sleeping slave girls, and Kamar al-Akmar slowly moved around them, picked up her hand and kissed the very tips of her fingers. And Shams al-Nahar, for that's who it was, woke up, and rather than being frightened by having a man next to him in a bed, his manner was so deferential and gentle and kind that she wasn't afraid. And he introduced himself as Kamar al-Akmar, son of King Tudor, and they got to talking. And they found that each of them were intelligent, clever people. And they started talking, and they continued talking until the sun finally started coming above the horizon and woke one of the slave girls, who was very alarmed to see a stranger in the harem talking to the king's daughter. So she instantly ran up and went to the guard and said, "You had one job. There's a man talking to the king's daughter." And the guard instantly drew his sword, came in, and said, "How dare you be in here?" And Kamar said, "What's that, man? I am Kamar al-Akmar, son of King Sabah, and your king has given me the beautiful Shams al-Nahar to be my bride." And this was the first the guard had heard of it. I mean, the king of Sana, that was the city, was notorious for killing a lot of king's sons who had dared to ask for the hands of Shams al-Nahar. The fact that someone had turned up out of nowhere and suddenly she was engaged. But Shams al-Nahar wasn't denying. So the guard went to the king and said, "Your Majesty, there's a man in the harem. He says you've given Shams al-Nahar to be his bride." And the king said, "I've done what?" Drew his sword, then put some clothes on, and went down. And he wielded his sword. It's a good job he had clothes on, because that didn't bring down. And said, "How dare you abuse my rules of hospitality? How dare you dishonour me? How dare you dishonour my daughter?" And Kamar al-Akmar, seeing a man wielding a scimitar, then he stood, drew his own sword, and said, "I am Kamar al-Akmar, king of King Sabah, and I come to marry your beautiful daughter, Shams al-Nahar. And I realise I have abused the laws of hospitality, and I will make amends." "You'll make amends, all right. You'll make amends with your blood. Nobody does this. No one abuses hospitality. No one dishonours me like this." And Kamar al-Akmar says, "I know what I'll do. To show I am worthy of your daughter's hand, I will face your entire army alone, and if I defeat it, I will win the hand of your beautiful daughter." Well, frankly, that took the wind out the sails of the king, so it was a lot more than he was suggesting. Because surely facing his entire army, he had to face it. And now he looked at Kamar al-Akmar. He was a fine man. And he had nice manners and rather good ability to hold himself in a tense situation. But the laws of hospitality had been broken. You can't just let that by. So he agreed that Kamar al-Akmar would face his entire army, and if he defeated it, he he would win the hand of the beautiful Shams-al-Nahar. And Kamar al-Akmar said goodbye to Shams-al-Nahar and followed the king of Sana'a out of the harem, down the stairs to the courtyard in front of the palace, where the king summoned his generals and the armies of the king of Sana'a started to assemble. And while they were there waiting for the armies, the king and Kamar al-Akmar started talking. And the king found that Kamar al-Akmar was a most intelligent conversationalist, and he was rather sad he was about to be hacked to pieces. But you can't let the laws of hospitality be abused. And Kamar al-Akmar said, I'm going to need a horse to fetch you. And the king said, you may take the finest in my stable. No, I have a horse, it's just on your roof. If you can get it down, please. And the king thought it was an odd request, but nothing about this day had gone wrong. So the horse was brought down, and when the king saw it, he saw it was this beautiful ebony horse that he could have sworn was a real horse had it not been encrusted with jewels. And he agreed that that bridle, that saddle, those trappings were truly fit for a king. And he said, but it's a toy. You're going to face my army on a toy. Take my finest horse, take two. No, said Kamar al-Akmar. This is the horse that I will win the hand of the beautiful Shams-al-Nahar. And he had the horse put just out of bowshot of the king's army. And the king's army were ready. And they looked at the man as he got on the beautiful black colt. They readied themselves to charge and hack him to pieces. They were rather sad because all of them had taken a liking to this man's pluck. And then, just as about to charge, Kamar al-Akmar pressed the button, made the ebony horse fly up into the air. The horse flew up into the air, and he dived at the army, and they were not expecting that. And he dived and he ducked, and even the people who had enough wit to get a bow out couldn't move so fast. And they said, we thought we were facing a man, not a jinn. And the army started to run until the entire army was on the run, and the king of Sana'a said to his general, we are supposed to be killing him. Kill him, I can't catch him. And Kamar al-Akmar went up to the roof of the palace. And Shams-al-Nahar, who had heard what had happened, ran up to the roof to meet him. And she had with her jewels and her gems and most precious possessions. And they loaded him up onto the ebony horse. Kamar al-Akmar got on, Shams-al-Nahar got on behind him, and the king of Sana'a and his wife ran up onto the palace roof and said, please, please do not take our beautiful Shams-al-Nahar from us. And Kamar al-Akmar was quite happy to take the beautiful Shams-al-Nahar away from the king of Sana'a. But he was worried a little bit of its son. And he said, Shams-al-Nahar, Shams-al-Nahar, I vow to you I will never leave your side. But if you come with me now, you may never see your beloved father and mother again. If you wish to stay, I will hold no bones barred, and I will wish you all the love and happiness in the world. And Kamar al-Akmar, I want to stay with you, even if it means I never see my beloved mother and father again. And Kamar al-Akmar pressed the button, and the ebony horse rose up in the sky. It was on the journey back that Kamar al-Akmar realised that he couldn't just take Shams-al-Nahar into the city. She was going to be its future queen. She needed procession, she needed pomp, she needed circumstance. So they'd stop down as a pleasure garden nearby. And Kamar al-Akmar said he would go into the city, he would bring a procession, and she would be received with all honour due her new position. And Shams-al-Nahar understood this. She was a princess. She knew that due process mattered. And so she was sad to see Kamar al-Akmar go. But he went off, and she waited, knowing he would be there soon. And Kamar al-Akmar got to the city very quickly, only to find it in mourning. And he thought, oh, my sister! Did she marry the Persian sage and kill herself? And he ran into the throne room to see what had happened, to find his entire family weeping, including his younger sister. And the moment they saw him, their tears of sadness turned to tears of joy. Because when Kamar al-Akmar had gone into the sky and vanished into the desert, they'd all assumed he was dead. And it embraced him. King Sabur was so happy, he allowed the Persian sage to be released from prison where he'd been put. And he even got to the throne room in time to hear all of Akmar's adventures, how he had faced the whole army of Sana, how he had won the hand of the beautiful Shams-An-Nahar, and how she was waiting at the pleasure garden. And he also heard King Sabur persuade his son to wait just a moment so they could enjoy the fact he was alive. He could go and take the processions in a few hours, give them a moment just to enjoy that he was alive. And Kamar al-Akmar couldn't deny his father such a small thing. So the Persian sage went to the pleasure garden, got in, and saw Shams-An-Nahar, and she indeed was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. And as he knew he'd lost his ebony horse, he'd lost his bride, he was going to have his revenge. So he said to Shams-An-Nahar, Kamar al-Akmar has sent me, he's got a procession ready. I am to take you on the ebony horse to meet him. And Shams-An-Nahar was a little bit suspicious, but the moment the Persian sage showed he knew how to fly the ebony horse, all doubts vanished, and without fear she got on back with the horse behind her. And the Persian sage pressed the button and the ebony horse flew. When Kamar al-Akmar got to the pleasure garden, he found the two most beautiful things that had been in it were gone. Shams-An-Nahar and the ebony horse. And he had no idea where they'd gone, and he had no way of finding out. He sent messages to where the Persian sage lived, but he'd not gone there. And there was no stories. There was nothing to go by. The ebony horse he knew could fly wherever it wanted. How could he find the beautiful Shams-An-Nahar? He waited. He sent out messages and nothing happened. And then he had decided, whatever the thing he had made a vow to the beautiful Shams-An-Nahar, he would be at her side, he would find where she was, even if it took the rest of his life. King Sabur was not lived. He said, Miss, I know she's probably beautiful, you say she's beautiful, but there are many beautiful women in this world. You will meet other beautiful women. You can't go out into the desert on your own with no idea where you're going, no idea where she is. Give it up, my son. There was no way. But Kamar al-Akmar would not abandon Shams-An-Nahar. He didn't know where she was, and he had no way how he'd find her. But he put on travelling clothes, he put money hidden around him, and he set out into the desert. He set out into the desert, and he went along the traveller's route. He went to the crossroads and the marketplaces, and he listened for stories. Stories of an ebony horse, a beautiful woman, and an ugly old man. What a woman. So he kept on going for a year and a day until finally there was a story. A Greek king one day had gone out. He'd gone out into a field to find an ebony horse, encrusted with jewels, with very, very nice bridle, saddle and trappings, a beautiful woman and an ugly old man. And the old man at first had said the woman was his wife and the horse was his. And the woman said, he's not my husband, he's kidnapped me. And that was enough for the king to decide to take all three into his possession. The horse went into his treasury, the old man went into his prison, and the woman went into his home. Now, it had to be Shams-An-Nahar, the ebony horse and the Persian sage. But it was a year old, this story. But Kamar al-Akmar had made a promise. And if Shams-An-Nahar was a Greek queen, well, he would go and find out before he gave up. So he went to the Greek kingdom and listened for more stories. And there were more stories. Apparently, the beautiful woman had indeed been put in the king's harem, but had instantly turned mad. Turned mad, so mad that no one could get near her. And for a year and a day, the Greek king had been sending out for any doctor he could find to cure her madness. Because he couldn't get close to her, because she raved, she tore at her hair, she tore at her clothes. And Kamar al-Akmar, hearing this, put on the clothes of a doctor and went before the Greek king and said, I hear you've got an ebony horse and a mad woman. Well, I've come across this before. It's common in my land. Those ebony horses, they get everywhere. Show me the woman, and I'll see if I can help. So Kamar al-Akmar was taken to Shams-An-Nahar, and he almost burst into tears to see how she raved and how she ripped at her hands and her clothes, and their eyes met for just this moment. And suddenly Kamar al-Akmar knew this was not madness, this was cunning. Shams al-Nahar had feigned madness every day, every waking hour for a year. For how else could she keep the great king away from her? And managing to keep it all inside, Kamar al-Akmar said, yes, this is common. What do you need to do? That ebony horse, you still got it, it's in your treasury. Take it down to the courtyard, bring the girl, and I'll sort it out. She won't move. She won't do anything but rave. No, she'll follow me. And just as he said that, Shams al-Nahar stood on the floor and with her head bowed, very, very slowly followed Kamar al-Akmar out of the harem, down into the courtyard to where the ebony horse was now waiting. Kamar al-Akmar said, you'll better stand back, this isn't pretty. He got on the ebony horse. Shams al-Nahar got on behind him. He said, this will only take a moment. He pressed the button and the ebony horse flew up into the sky. This time they weren't taking any chances, they went right back to the king. And Kamar al-Akmar and Shams al-Nahar were married. Shams al-Nahar was happy because Kamar al-Akmar had kept his promise to her. Even when there was no hope of finding her, he still came and he kept his promise, and she never had a doubt in him. And Kamar al-Akmar knew this was the woman for him because she wasn't marrying him because he was rich. The Persians say she was rich. She wasn't marrying him to the son of a king. I mean, a Greek king would have made her his queen, and the Greek king was actually quite attractive. No, she was marrying because he was handsome, elegant, well thought of, rich, powerful, and everything. But, most importantly, she knew she could trust him. And he knew he could trust her because she had spent a day and a year feigning madness, never for a second losing hope that he would come. And so Shams al-Nahar and Kamar al-Akmar were married, and they ruled their kingdom well in their turn. And the ebony horse? Well, King Sabur realised such a thing was far too dangerous for man to have, and it was broken up, and never again would it cause such trouble. And that's my story. You can see why you can't tell that story a lot. It's a great story, and I've actually shortened it. Right, now, a bit of light looping. Let's see. Now, I'll show you what I've brought with me. It is very much a few little things. I've brought with me mainly recorders because they were cleared. And let me do a quick test on this pen. Let's see if this works. Two-part. And hopefully, I'll get it right. choosing this recorder because it's I've got two tenor recorders here. They are both lovely in their own ways, and this one. This one's got quite a nice, lovely tone to it. Only problem is this requires more breath, so. Okay, let's go for this one, see how this goes. If it goes horribly wrong, we make moves to go on. Also 15th century, and that one I play serially, so it doesn't quite sound the same. Right, now, I can either have it play another dark piece, or you can dance. Well, shall I show you a crumple first? I'll show you a crumple. I only brought a few
Wait for the crumple. Do not play.
No. This is a crumple. It's a very, very beautiful thing. Did I talk about the crumple? The thing that I understand about crumpons is that crumpons, they're not carved in this position. They are made from a long, straight piece of wood, and they are bent. This is bending of wood. It's a really difficult thing to do. This one is made from sycamore, and because it's got this strapiness, it's very, very brittle. So if you bend it, you can easily break it, and these actually have some repaired breaks. So, and the way you do it is you put them into hot steam, fill them with hot sand. They've got about a minute to bend them. It's really hard work. We have a lot of breakages, and the thing that's really important is this curve does nothing. Apart from make it look really nice. It has no acoustic properties at all. And the reason I think they do it is the originals had horns on, and they just kept on doing it. And I think, why are we doing this? They just kept on doing it. But it makes them look really, really nice. And I'll do a very, very, very quick tune on it. I was going to do you a crumb-on quartet, which I think I've got on the pedal. Let me see if I can find it. This is recorded on crumb-ons, actually. Told not to. So dancing time. I was told people would dance. It's a really fun dance. It's called the Horses Brawl. Yes. Can we have people up for the Horses Brawl? Yes. I need 2 lines facing each other.
I can't remember the last time I actually Retreat.
The last time I danced,
A single person that might take a 2 with me.
Boys on that side.
Oh, right, okay.
Right. Okay. Get a bit of distance. It's kind of a part of the dance. So it'd be nice to have. Right. Who knows this? Right.
Anybody's welcome to join in?
Not after my surgery, thank you.
So, make sure I'll have to walk it through, we're going to. I've got my CD here, and I'm going to do it off my CD, but I'll do the music while we're learning it. First part of the dance. There are 3 parts to this dance.
Three parts of the dance.
Is the first part of this. In the first part of this dance, you stand opposite sides ready for battle. You go left, which means that I go that way and you go that way. It doesn't mean that we all go that way. I have taught this dance a lot. So you step left. You cross over your feet, still going left. I know it might be very slightly different. You cross over your legs, and then you step left again, and then you kick left with the right foot. Then you step right with the right foot, cross over, you're still going the right, step, kick right with the left foot, and then you go the other way.
Yeah, that's going to be
It might be very slightly from what you know. Yeah? Right. Okay, now, this is the second part of this dance. In this, you have 6 beats to cross over. So you go here, you go there, so cross over sides, left shoulder, or right shoulder, but not middle in the middle. So you go over there, you come over here. So just cross over, and do the best bow you can possibly do. Elegant. And then you go back. That's lovely. And then you do a very, again, wonderful bow. Now, the people here. That's okay. No. This comes from the 16th century. This is one of the hits of the 16th century. I mean, it really is. It's where it's at in the 16th century. I mean, you can tell it's popular. There's loads and loads of survivals of this tune. If a tune survives once, it means it's popular. If it survives many times, it means it's incredibly popular. And it's part of the Brawl family. And brawl doesn't mean having a Barney, although this dance does go to that. It really means a move from side to side. And they had themes. The peas brawl involves you jumping up and down, I don't understand why. The washing brawl involves you washing your clothes and telling your husband off. And the horses and brawl involves you doing this. Now, You're going to do this first. So your tune is going to be... And you do your horses first and then yours. But you're not any horses. Because any horses could be any horses, but no. You are first. And I want you to go on a journey with me in your mind. You're on a seashore. It's stormy. Behind you, the sea is raging and crashing against the rocks. You're underneath a cliff. On top of the cliff, there is a castle. In front of the castle, there is a horse. There is a horse so dark, it doesn't look like a horse. It looks like a hole in space. The horse rears, lightning flashes down. You swear there is fire coming from that horse's nostrils. You have never felt so connected to the earth. You have never felt so part of nature. You have never felt so bonded to all that is visceral in your being. And I need you to give me that. As you put your little horse ears up.
Will you do that?
No, it's just them. Wait, they do it first.
Okay.
You stop. Step to the left and turn to the right.
Yeah, this isn't what we do.
No, I know what you do. I know, but it's better. So, that's what I'm expecting from you? Oh, no. You do this first. You watch. You get to see how visceral and earthy they are. You get to watch as well, but you don't have the satisfaction of not, because you're not part of it. But this is what you get to watch. And you'll do it next. But you're not that horse. You're a different horse. You're in a beautiful garden. It's the most beautiful garden you've ever seen. It's spring. The scent of newness is in the air. There is an avenue of trees. It's cherry blossom. Cherry blossom is falling like snow. And along the avenue runs a white horse. Its mane is flowing out behind it. It is so beautiful. The angels are weeping. It is the most elegant thing you've ever seen. You feel barely connected to the earth. You feel if you just jumped, you would fly off into the air. You are ethereal. You're part of the sky. And I need you to give me that. You'll be lucky. Horse ears up. Do whatever you're going to do with your right foot. Step to the left and turn to the right. I have great faith. Now, do you want to go through one more time? Because this is different from the dance you know.
Yeah,
It's making it harder.
You just made it so much harder.
It is a lot harder.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so start. Left, 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 kick, right, 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 kick, left, right, right, kick, right, 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 kick. Crossover, 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 bow. Bow.
Bow.
I want the utter visceral of being that is you. As you have the horse ears. Stop. Step to the left.
Turn to the
Turn to the
right.
right.
Turn to the right.
I need utter beauty and ethereal nature. Stop, stop, stop. Left.
Step to the left.
Turn to the right.
Turn to the right.
On the right.
Are you ready?
No. By the way, Claire, I'm stealing your introduction for the horses when I teach this.
Excellent. That's great. I'm very pleased. Yeah, it's amazing. You're going to, this is the version of my CD because it might get fast. Spoils it. You've got our introduction. Oh, hang on, wait a second. Let's get loud enough. Oh gosh, that's very quiet, isn't it? Oh, I know one. Hang on. Hang on. It's different from my one in how it works. Right. Can you hear it? Hang on, stop. Let's get a volume that's neither deafening nor silent. How's it? Is that okay?
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's start again. Okay. You get da 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 as your example.
No.
Are you ready? Left. Right. Left. Right. Crossover. Bow. Back. Bow. If there horses, I want to see that earth. Ethereal. over. Bow. Back. Bow. Earthy horses. Give me that visceral nature. Oh, lovely, a sky boy. Left. Right. Left. Right. Cross over. Back. Earthy horses. I want to feel the ground shake. Sky horses. Obey. Left. Right. Left. Right. Cross. Nothing. Back. Shaking of the arm, horses. Sky. Lovely. Left. Left. Cross. Back. Earth shaking horses. Sky horses. Left. Left. Cross. Back. Horses. Last horses. Your options are doing that one again, or doing a different one.
Different one.
Different one. 4, 3. I need groups of 3 for Petty Rihanna.
They're going to give us different ones, aren't they?
Yeah, probably.
You're going to give us different things.
Oh, well, this is, I believe, from the manual, dance manuals. The dance manuals of the 15th century are exciting things. For the 15th century, there are no written down dance steps. And there's a lot of reason to think that the reason there are no written down dance steps for the 15th century, there was no set choreography for them. If you weren't doing a Farron dance, which you've probably done Farron, haven't you?
It's the most boring dance in the world.
Oh, God, I presume do it wrong. Oh, you do it wrong! Oh, them's fighting words. I don't know. Yeah, I know. But there is no sort of choreography. There's idea that it's very improvised. And in the 15th century, with the rise of men wanting to show off to women, and needing...
Do you mean that wasn't there before?
Because the whole thing with... You get the whole thing with when tournaments start. It starts with men having a fight to field. It then moves to men having a fight where women can see them and admire them. And suddenly people want to be identified for who they are. And once you've had your fight showing how posh you are, you want your lady of choice to show her favour to you. And where else can she do this but on the dance floor? Dance at this period is where men and women who are not related to each other can actually touch and talk. It's astonishing. So now...
Insert slap him now.
So you're in a 3, which, considering what I've just said, is not a good thing to go. Right, okay. So you've done Petty Round. It's probably what you expect. So you've got 16 bars as a group to have some fun. Preferably nothing, you've only got 16 bars to have some fun, so don't get too involved in it. Just, as long as you stay together. Now, you are number 1, you are number 2, you are number 3. You, in this music we're going to play you, will follow a recorder, you'll be following a fiddle, you'll be following a crumb horn. And the reason I say that is that in this dance you move separately. And the music I've got here, you know if you're moving, if your instrument is the one to play, unless you're all playing together. So, how it starts is you've got 16 bars to go around, having fun, there's 3. You can go anywhere. Anywhere you like, preferably in this room. Then, after the 16 bars, oh, hang on, oh no, there was my bagpipes, I'll do my bagpipes off. So your 16 bars of fun, but not too much fun. Your 16 bars of measured fun. That's where you're having your fun. Now your next bit is that I probably ought to be playing on a different instrument than Number one, you will now go off for a double on the. But you can go anywhere you like. You're not dancing with them. You are only dancing with your group.
Yeah.
You have a double. You have this kind of tune. To go wherever you like. Okay. And then that tune's repeated, that'll be on the recorder, and then you have to go and follow her on the repeat of that, and then you follow. You can go anywhere. You can go and interfere with them. There is nowhere you can't go, but you are only dancing with your group. So you do. So you go off. So da 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 da, and you fall again. And then you've got the da 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 da, and so you only off for a double. And in that double, you go somewhere. And in the second da-da-da-da-da-da, the second person goes, well, it has to go because you're now forming a triangle. So you're one point of a triangle, the da-da-da-da-da that you form there, and you form a triangle on the third da-da-da-da-da-da. So, da-da-da-da-da-da, you go somewhere. Da-da-da-da-da-da, you go, say, here. And da-da-da-da-da-da, you go and form a triangle with them. And it doesn't matter if your triangles intersect, but it does make the next bit more challenging. Okay. Yes. Now, the next bit is all about number two. Number two, super special.
Of course, always.
So on the next bit, everyone, so 1 and 2 bow to each other.
That's one
And 2. Then 2 and 3 bow to each other. Then everyone bows to each other because nobody loves anybody else. And then you go, you step backwards, there. Then you step forwards. Then you step to the left. And then you turn to the right. And the most difficult bit of the entire dance, number 2 now leads off. And the instrumentation will change. Number 3.
Number 2.
It's a different.
This is different.
Yeah, number 2 leads off.
See how long it takes us to screw it up.
And you do the same thing
To be
again.
fair, we screwed
1
dances
minute.
in practice.
Right, so let's go from the start again. Right, I'll play this bit. Where is it? Oh, my drone is out. Let me play on something else. You can do what you like. You are the masters of your own destiny as long as you follow the steps.
Yes.
And your destiny is to stay still, apparently.
Ready?
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
Oh no, you're going too hard. Yeah.
Oh,
I thought we were
you
trying.
said triangle.
No, this is first.
Oh, okay.
Triangle's the second one.
Right.
And then
And third person makes a line here.
now it's triangles. Oh no, your line still. Next one's triangles.
So you should have done the end.
Now it's triangles. Okay. Backward. Are you ready to?
Yep.
Right, so release and then 1 and then 3.
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's then
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Are you ready?
No.
So then he plays them. Right, let me get the right music up.
Yeah. Eventually.
We'll see how it goes.
All the people that know what's going on are there.
It's okay.
Okay, go where you like. Keep going. Get ready for it. Number one, you're on your own. Go, go, go. Anywhere, anywhere. Two, don't let them get away with it. Three, you're getting lonely. Triangles next. Lovely. Bows and two. Two still great. We have two. Go out. Go in. Step left. Turn right. Two, you're in command. Go where you like. They're even doing the correct step.
Throw it into us.
Number two, you want to get away from it all. One, three, don't let them get away with it. One. Triangles next. Everyone loves two. Still love two. We still love two. Back. Forward. Step left. Turn to the right. Number three, you're in command.
You got it, you can.
Three, get away from it all.
Wait.
One, don't let three get all the fun.
Too far.
Triangles next.
Go.
Everyone loves two. Back. Forward. Left. Back again. Turn to the right. And that's the dance.
Nice variation. You got the Peter really nice.
Yeah,
Ready.
really well done.
So do you want to do your versions,
That
the
step,
versions
that
that you're
step.
used to doing?
I just got to help you
Yeah. That took months to learn that step.
Yeah, I have the wrong shoes for that.
Yeah, we've got the wrong shoes on, yes.
So are you ready? Get ready to go?
Oh, let's give it a go.
Go. Let's go. Are you having fun?
Oh, more than you can imagine.
One, be free. Two, three, do you want them up? Triangles. Next one, next one. Everyone loves two. Still love two. Can't get enough of that two. Back. Forward. Step left. Step right. And turn to the right. Two, you're in command. Off you go, two. You're so nice, you're not doing anything awful to other people.
Give us a chance.
Triangle. Everyone loves two. Great two. We love two. Back. Forward. Step left. And back. And turn to the right. Three. Go.
Do the squeeze picture. 3. Triangles. Get a load of that too. Back. Forward. Step left and back and turn to the right and start.
Now we're going to see if we can try and learn that one. That's surprise, boss.
I think that's about the, that is pretty much out the dance man. There's always variations because they say things like,
Yeah, we've got to like over there.
yeah.
Let's have a look then.
There's a dance called Pern on Green, which is in the Greasley manuscripts, which has a thing called Do a Fleur-de-lis. No one knows what a fleur-de-lis is, but of course you know, you're a dancing master. Do you want to do your version of Petit Riant to that?
We can do that. That's really
They
nice.
have 3 sets, so we don't have to, but okay, that
No,
works.
no, we do one set of 3.
Do 1 set of 3, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, no, you can try it if you want.
yeah.
It's just Renee has never done it before, so you don't know what she's doing. Okay.
Do you want to do it? Or can I just
No,
suggest
no,
it?
do it. It's up to you guys. Follow.
Do you want to give it a go? Yeah.
Maybe it should be at the
Wait,
end.
we're going to mess it up anyway.
Messes. Sorry, dear.
This is the smell say.
How can I not?
Go somewhere.
Another one, Gary. Too many. What is that? Another one.
Damn. Want to try?
This shows how different the music is.
Well, sorry.
So, that comes to the end of my little time with you all. I will talk tomorrow. Thank you very much.